Welcome to Bachademia, a podcast so educational two professors could be hosting it. Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Dick-McGue, and joining me is Dr. Bill Henneman.
Welcome to Bachademia, everybody. This week we are on to, this is season 4, episode 2 of this series. Yeah. So I had a much bigger way I was going to say that. But this week we're bringing back Bachademia and UNI alum, Nicole Hackman. This was a crazy week in real life and in BIP life. Wow. Nicole, you ready for this?
Yes.
Awesome. What should we know about your comings and goings since we last saw you? And I think you were on season 2, right?
It was Claire Tasha's season.
Tasha.
I don't know if that was.
Oh, that was season 1, I think.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's been a while. December, I think it was. So speaking of wife, you accidentally said earlier, I got married, I got a house, and I changed jobs. So
And where are you now?
I'm with Leader Valley, the fundraising for the Leader in Me program. So I am deep within the education world as well. Loving it.
Cool.
That's amazing.
Danielle.
What a year.
Oh, go ahead.
I said, what a year, Nicole.
No kidding.
Now you just like coast into retirement. That's what I'm doing.
I'm about to.
Yeah. Danielle, any updates from your life before we get going?
My kiddos started school this week.
Yeah.
So that was really big. My son started kindergarten, my daughter started preschool, and it's the first time that both of our kids have been cared by for someone that isn't a relative. And so we've had lots of emotions this week. Our kids are doing awesome. Ryan and I need to sleep for like a year now. Everyone said, hey, when your kids start school, they'll be really, really tired and they'll start going to bed early. And I don't know why we haven't gotten that benefit yet. It's like 8 p.m. Our kids are like still at the park. We're like having to like yell at them to come home. They come home, they're running around like wild. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go to sleep at 7:45. I don't know. They have endless amounts of energy. They're doing awesome. But yeah.
I can tell you're tired because normally Danielle and I have a real stream of texts at about 9:15 at night on various topics. And the last couple of nights I've texted her and there's no response. And I'm like, she must be asleep.
I've been asleep before 9:30, I think every day this week.
That's good though. All right, here we go. Question of the week. Would you rather, I thought this was very topical, lose the ability to lie or believe everything you're told? Which would you rather have to do?
I said I would rather lose the ability to lie solely because there are already too many people in the world who believe everything they're told. And we will just leave it there.
I sort of agree. I agree with you. I think I'd rather lose the ability to lie, but that would hurt me just a little bit because I really like to tell stories and I might embellish the truth just a little in order to telling the story sometimes. So I would mourn that, but I think it would be worth it because I think that people could use a little less gullibility right now in the world.
I agree. Yeah.
Hashtag facts.
Yep. I never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So I'm with Danielle, but I think I would have to live with myself. I would rather lose the ability to lie than have to believe everything I'm told. So especially as a scientist, you got to be a skeptic. Like you got to, like, even things I say, I'm like, I don't know if that's true, Bill. What are you doing? So
I like to think of it as a sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yes, I like to have a sense of curiosity.
I like to not believe what people tell me constantly and just constantly, I don't think that's true.
Bill's a skeptic. I'm curious.
Not skeptic on the level of Elaine's mom, though, when it comes to Bachelor. She is the chief skeptic. She moves over into like the crazy conspiracy theory Like she was texting me during these episodes, like, do you think the producers made him do this? So
I like it.
I call her Q Sue.
I think she has like a vivid imagination.
Yeah. Yep. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, mom too. Sue. Sue, mom too.
Oh,
all right.
Congrats to Danelle on running a race.
Oh, yes. Danelle, tiny Danelle, my mom, who is 4'10", won her age group in the beer mile. So if you're not familiar with what the beer mile is, it is you chug a beer, you run a lap, 400 meters, chug a beer, run a lap, chug a beer, run a lap, chug a beer, run a lap, and then you're done. And mom won the 50 and over. And it was like damn near chariots of fire at the end. She was like running, like high-fiving people as they were cheering. And so I paid her entry fee if my dad is listening, and my mom won a 6-pack of beer. At no point was there ever an offer to give me half of that beer. Because my mom doesn't drink beer, but my dad was like, oh, like carrying it like a baby back to the car, showing more care than he ever did for me as a child when he carried me. Like, we're gonna buckle you up, buddy. So
I love it. It's wonderful. Congrats, Danelle. Also, you might come here to hear about The Bachelor, but you're also going to learn about our families. So consider yourself enriched.
Yep. Well, I am a family services professor, so it's okay. Let's address the elephant in the room. There is a metric-ish ton of stuff this week, so we're not going to get to all of it. We're only going to get to the stuff that I think is important. So basically, it's just going to be like me teaching class, since I wrote the outline this week. But moving forward, if you all have stuff you want us to talk about at Bachademia, on Twitter or bachademia@gmail.com. Send us questions. We're always happy to talk about the things that you want us to. All right. So anything to add before I go on?
Jump in.
All right. Thank God the intro is back. Demi is stirring the pot in the intro, which I thought was exactly what we needed. She comes on and she talks to Kenny, Connor, and Brendan. She chooses Brendan. They make out on that date, and then Brendan says they should explore other options, and Demi is mad. What do we think about the way that Brendan approached that?
So, Bill, I'm going to just get right ahead of this and say that I was a Demi fan the first season, and I wish that she had just kind of stepped out a little bit or taken a back seat, because she's a little too much for me at this point and seems a little mean, less feisty than a little bit actually getting maybe a little bit mean.
I think Danielle's on your side. We listened to the podcast on the way home today, and you mentioned this last podcast.
Yeah, so I really like Demi a whole lot. But I like her because she playfully stirs the pot. And okay, so here's the deal with the whole Brendan thing. She acts pretty clearly like she's just here for kind of fun. And they go on one date and make out, and then Brendan's sort of like, okay, but like, yeah, we're keeping our options open, right? And then she like is like, what a jerk. How could he treat me this way? And you're like, but this is how you've been. And so like, I thought that there was something off with Demi. To me, I'll be with like Sue here. I felt like this was just acting. In the past, I felt like you were getting Demi and that she was just kind of this like playful, sassy, stir the pot kind of person. I felt like this was like plotted out, scripted. I don't believe that Demi's feelings were really hurt by Brendan. Like, I just thought it was a load of crap.
It seemed very forced. And I thought Brendan, the way he like stated it, it was like, that's the game, right? I don't think he wasn't like, you're a horrible kisser, I don't like you. It was like, gonna take a pass on that.
I mean, it was in high. I know that like we didn't see the Thomas Serena P date for a long time, but I mean, it was essentially the same thing that had happened,
Right.
except that everybody was like, "Oh, good for Serena, she turned him down," and then everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe Brendan, turned Demi down." And so I didn't know if it was just a matter of like who was involved, or if I don't know if people were just already upset with Brendan, so they, made it worse or what. But
So I think it got legs because you find out like an STI on the beach, a rumor spreads, and that Brendan and Piper are together, kind of, and people are mildly annoyed about that. So then it gets back to Demi. Demi sits down with Brendan. He says him and Piper were seeing each other, but not really. Um, Thoughts on that? I felt like it was a very political, like his kind of like the way he set it up. I feel like that's where he erred. Um,
do I think that he probably had some inkling that Piper would be coming? Probably. Do I think that this situation is worse than what Demi did on her last season? Definitely not. And as we
Remind
talked,
us what Demi did.
so last time, which would have been 2 years ago, because Bachelor in Paradise has been gone forever, Demi came on the show, ready to find love, explore things, but she did have a girlfriend back home she had left to just kind of try out her options and that kind of thing. So as she got involved with sweet Derek Peth from Waverly, ended up breaking his heart and bringing her girlfriend on the show in front of poor sweet Derek. And I was super happy that she did bring Christian on and they did get engaged, and it seems like they had a good time for a while, but it seems pretty much like a double standard for her to be able to do that, and everybody loved it, and for Brendan to, be involved with Piper just casually, and they're crucifying him. So
Well, and here's the thing. I think that if you go on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette and you have any sort of a relationship sort of back at home, I'm going to judge you a little bit, right? Because I feel like there's such a more serious like expectation with those shows. And that's not to say that engagements don't come out of Bachelor in Paradise, but it does feel like more fun. And so like there's like part of me that's like, hey, you come onto the show and like most of you are in open relationships throughout the start of the show. So what's the difference whether or not like one of those relationships, I don't know, was beforehand. But clearly people care about this because of Blake in the last season,
Yep.
so people care. Um, I just am trying to figure out why. Do you have insights on this? Can help me out, Bill?
Well, yeah, so a lot of it is kind of how you define your relationship with the person. So if you say I have a open relationship, then you're going to be okay with that person kind of going out and looking. But if you are somebody who's interested in that person, then you may not be okay with them having an open relationship. And there's also this feeling, I can't remember the article I read, but people feel like if you are in an open relationship, you should state that you're in an open relationship at the beginning. So it's almost like buying a car, where it's like you should tell people that this car has been in a wreck. You also, when it comes to open relationships, people feel like you should be upfront about that. And so sometimes I wonder if that is where all this angst comes from, is like there should be like a declaration at the beginning, like you have to wear like a scarlet letter or something that says like, oh, like open relationship, and everyone knows that you got someone back, and they might show up because everybody that they date seems to has become this very like inbred group of people where they only date within the Bachelor sphere. And so that's probably the other thing, is that Piper is probably going to show up, right? And that is probably adding to some of that, because when you look at like when people are worried, especially when you ask them about cheating, people are much less okay with cheating if it's a one-time thing and it never comes back up in a relationship. as opposed to repeated cheating or emotional connections and cheating. And so I feel like all of that's kind of coming to a head. So we do have a poll that I did. It said, is it okay to have an open relationship back home? Looking at you, Brendan, and then to come on Paradise. About 50 people answered. About 20% said yes. About 44% said no. And then about 35% of losers said maybe. I don't know why I put that like I don't want to make a decision category, and that's a researcher in me, but I'm like, God, just pick a side, people.
So do you think that maybe some of the difference too in people's reaction to like Demi bringing Christian on last time was that Christian wasn't part of the Bachelor sort of nation? And yeah, that some of the issue is that then it feels like someone's holding out for another person to show up.
I think
Which is
so.
which is interesting because like even people though that haven't met those folks have an eye on someone and they'll openly talk about it. So like thinking about Tajwan and like being so excited for Riley to show up. So like it seems kind of funny to me that like Brendan can't be excited for Piper to show up because they met each other beforehand.
Right.
But I don't know. Bring
Yeah.
on chaos.
Yeah. I think the other thing with Demi is that she brought on a person of the same, a person who is interested in women. And though this is probably not true, the idea is that all of the other women there are straight, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was like, well, this is the only way she can get somebody who's interested in, if Demi's bi, that this is the only way she can explore that side of her sexuality. I feel like that sometimes people are more okay with that. I don't know, like at a very like cognitive highbrow way if they should be, because it's like you're just either way you're following and you're trying to fall in love with one person. Monogamy appears to be the goal, but from an emotional thing, I guess I can see why some people be like, well, she didn't choose me for another guy, she dumped me for this woman. There's no way I can compete with that, so I'm okay with it. And I wondered if that played into it.
Well, and I also just think that in general, people have wanted to see the franchise break out of this sort of more very much heteronormative structure. And so some of the support for Demi and Christian could have like nothing to do with like what she did, but like supporting the franchise, making that sort of expansion.
And they could certainly go out and find plenty of attractive people who have all different types of orientations. And I'm not convinced that there aren't people on the show right now that have other orientations that they're just not they haven't come out or they don't want to make it public. So right. I get leery when they're like, she's the first and the only bi person to ever be on it. It's like, I don't think that's true. So she's just the first openly. So Goddess tells Demi that she should feel not like a lot of an idiot, but a little bit like an idiot, which I thought was one of the greatest quotes and amounts of shade I've heard on the show. Along with this, Natasha and Brendan were like coupled up. And so then she talks about Piper, and then they kind of like settle it. Piper and Natasha and Brendan, and they seem like they're still together. Do you think that's going to be foreshadowing? And they have issues in the next episode, which we're going to talk about. So
I loved their conversation. Like, I think Natasha is arguably the most mature woman on the beach, potentially the most mature person. And you could tell that like some of the ways that the other women are trying to have these important conversations, they think that they're handling it as well as Natasha did, but they're really not. Especially we'll talk later about Victoria's little buzzwords or therapy buzzwords. But I mean, I don't know that Natasha and Brendan are long-term, but the way she handled her concerns by letting him speak first, She calmly had the questions she wanted to address and let him speak through it. There was like no interrupting, no like high emotions between them as they were discussing. So I could see why they made it to that point of like, okay, we're fine now. Do I think it's going to be good long term? Probably not, but at least they were mature about it in the first part.
So I want you to remember that, because when we talk about their talk in the second episode, I have some thoughts on the way that they interact, and but move on. So meanwhile, box guy James, or whatever his name is, and Victoria, not goddess, Victoria from Nashville, are cultivating a romance as spicy as celery. Like, I just felt like it was very tepid. At some point, Victoria confuses sequoias with cicadas. One's a tree, one's a bug. And then Tammy decides to stir the pot. Demi was crying at this point, so Tammy was like, I will take this from you and I will now stir the pot for you by telling everyone Victoria has a Nashville boyfriend. She's trying to get him famous. Everyone keeping up? Go ahead, Danielle.
Victoria's just awful. And I feel so stupid because I kind of liked her.
Wait, which Victoria?
Victoria and Nashville.
They're both awful. I'm joking.
Right? Oh, yeah, they are both awful. So when she was on, whose season was she on?
That was
Pete's.
Yeah, Peter's.
I kind of felt, like I felt bad for her. Mm-hmm. I felt like I kind of believed her, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, you duped me. I was the believe anything you're told person, right? She's awful. And she's had way too much plastic surgery. And did you read that her boob recently popped?
Yes.
Her mom's comments are golden though. I will like ship her mom. Is that what kids say? Do you guys still say ship? Anyway, like her mom like makes fun of her and is like, oh, I told you it's gonna be so hot there that your boob exploded. And like but her mom also defends her, which is what any good mom should do. But gosh, some of these women, you're pretty, leave your face alone. You are pretty, stop letting people poke needles and Botox in it. I don't know, just a thought.
So here's my question. Is anyone dumb enough to think that if you have a boyfriend in Nashville and you want to get him famous, the way to do it is to come on the show and lie?
I mean, it's kind of like a long-term game, Bill, right? You go on the show that gets you lots of followers. Once you have lots of followers, then you can ditch the show, go back to your boyfriend, and then you can post a bunch of pictures of your boyfriend on Instagram.
Okay.
With all those followers. And then, I mean, I'm joking. Yeah, this could work.
Chase
but it's
Rice,
not probable.
What?
Remember Chase Rice? Victoria F. had that thing with the singer that ended up being on the show. So, I mean, it did kind of work for that guy.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like Tammy was stirring some stuff up, and I don't know if Victoria's long game was to get her boyfriend famous, but it does seem like she wasn't genuinely there to have any type of relationship.
Yeah. And I'm upset anytime I agree with Tammy, because I think Tammy is a mean person. So when I started to see reason, I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I agree with all of those feelings, Nicole.
So Victoria goes and talks to, she denies she has a boyfriend. James calls her out. Then she goes and confronts Tammy and Kelsey. She uses a whole bunch of therapy buzzwords. And then she leaves. And I feel like I should have a good question there, like to lead us, but it just seemed like a dumpster fire, and probably good that she left.
Did she or did she not admit to having a boyfriend in the car on the way out? Because she said something very specifically about, but I have something great at home. Like she said at home. And so like the debate has kind of been like, is that what she meant? Like, did she admit she had a boyfriend, or were they off at the time and now she realized she's going back to him? Or it was even more suspicious at the tail end there.
I think that, Bill, I think you said something like, I don't like that I now am feeling empathy, or maybe it was Kim. I don't remember. One of you said like, I don't like that I'm now feeling empathy for James, because I've always kind of thought James was a little meh. And now I'm like, I just felt like he was being manipulated. So bye-bye, Victoria. Toodles.
I was Kim, and it shows how tenuous my grasp on co-host is right now, that you are just conflating the two of us. Like Kim or Bill, whichever one, curly hair, whichever one shows up, I'll just.
In fairness, it was in the same text
Yes.
string.
No, yes.
Okay.
I've
only mistaken you by appearance once or twice.
I totally agree. James, I'm not sure I would like him. I'm not sure him and I would hang out, but he definitely came across looking like a wounded puppy. So good riddance, Victoria. Yeah. Other notables from this episode. Aaron makes out with Serena C, and then Tammy steps in and goes late night Cinemax. What do you think Aaron and Tammy are gonna, how do you think that's gonna end?
Dumpster fire, but it's perfect for both of them because they're
Right.
both just kind of mean and too dramatic. So I was like, all right, they can just stay together.
I don't think that they really like each other, but I also think that they don't like other people better than they like each other.
Yeah, I'm not sure either of them likes themselves if they really get down to it. And yeah, I think what I'm excited about is they both are people that like to get a group together and like go after. And so I hope that at some point this implodes and the two of them like create warring factions, and we basically just get like an episode of Game of Thrones, like warring factions. Yeah, I feel like that's where we're heading, and I'm here for it. Ship it, as the kids say, the youths.
The old people say that the youth say.
Demi demonstrates sexy eye. I'm not sure that this would attract me. Thoughts? Has this worked for you all? Is this, Nicole, is this how you've got your newly minted husband? Was it the sexy eye?
I met him when I was in like 7th grade, so I'm gonna go with a no on that. But did you catch Victoria's other great one-liner here, where she looks Demi in the face and goes, "Except it didn't work for you, right?" Like, she has got to be the ballsiest person on that beach, because would I ever say a word against Demi? Heck no, never. She's terrifying.
Yeah. So interestingly, like, no one likes Victoria and she says what's ever on her mind. But then I really like Taj, and we'll talk about her, and she says what's ever on her mind. And watching them, I can't figure out what the difference is in the way that they approach just blurting out what they think. But there's definitely, Taj is much better at it. That makes you like root for her.
Danielle, did you say last week something about like you're not sure that Victoria is actually aware of how she's coming off to people, whereas Taj is super clear about like who she is as a person and who people perceive her as? So I wonder if that's the difference.
And I think that Taj is like, I'm a chaotic mess. Whoa.
Yeah.
And I think that Victoria is like, I'm a goddess and I'm so confident in everything that I'm saying. I think like it's a very different sort of like approach. And I will say, I find that Victoria insults people. I think that Taj makes fun of people, but still is like, I like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I don't think it's vicious. We're like, I think that sometimes Victoria's just mean.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Danielle, you've got an extra credit on a vocal fry, which I'm excited about, because about 2 years ago, this went all over the internet. Like, people were experts on vocal fries, and I don't know what it is and what it means. And so I'm really pumped about this.
So as I was like following Twitter during the episode, a lot of people were talking about how terrible vocal fry was on the episode, especially with Demi. And I had done some research into vocal fry when it was really talked about a couple of years ago, and really was interested in gendered perceptions of vocal fry. And so vocal fry is creaky voice. I kind of consider it like Kardashian talk. And so it's basically when speakers lower their pitch at the end of sentences, and it's like so kind of low that it kind of, your chords are kind of given out. It's the opposite of, sometimes I conflate vocal fry with uptalk. So uptalk is actually when your intonation goes up at the end of the sentence, even if you're not asking a question. So that would be an example of that. I'm actually terrible at getting examples of vocal fry, but I'll try.
Yes. Demonstration. Science.
Like, sometimes vocal fry is usually when people's voice sounds like stressed out and tired. It's kind of like, and what's really interesting about this is when people lower. So Bill, you're always like, oh no, Danielle's starting her teaching voice, right? If you would hear my teaching voice, what you'll probably notice is that something I do is lower my intonation. I speak at a different register than when I'm being playful, I'm up here, right? You know? And part of the reason for that is we tend to hear lower registers of voices as being more credible, more authentic, more serious. So if you want to be taken seriously, a lot of times that's how over time I've learned to lower my voice as a way to gain credibility. So what's kind of interesting about vocal fry is that almost everyone actually uses vocal fry from time to time. And that universally, almost universally, lower voices are thought of as more authoritative or higher status. What's interesting is when people, if you're a man or you're someone in a high position and you use vocal fry, it's likely that either A, people won't recognize it, or B, as like vocal fry, or B, they will see it as like a positive thing. Where like if you're a woman or in lower status, so for example, like I do this too, I have the same bias. I hear it right away with Demi and it drives me nuts. But I'm sure that there's also other people on the show that are using it that like I'm not noticing as much. So what's really interesting is as they've done studies is basically when you take into account people's, like everybody's using it, but like we only are hearing it and we only think of it as a sign of like people being stupid like the Kardashians when it's certain people using it. And so that's kind of just like wild that yeah, that we kind of, what we can hear and what we can't hear based on our own sort of stereotypes and biases is really fascinating. But that's a little bit about vocal fry.
Nice, thank you.
I think it's interesting.
Good
That
job.
is the number one thing that drives me crazy about Tyler Cameron.
Oh, which is too bad because you don't want to have anything drive you crazy about Tyler Cameron. Oh my goodness.
So, who made it through the rose ceremony? We've got Ivan and Jasenia, Noah and Abigail, Joe and Serena P, Connor and Marissa, Trey and Tejuan, Carl and DeAndre, Brendan and Natasha, Aaron and Tammy, Kenny and Mary, Demi and James. Serena C, Kelsey, and the goddess go home.
I just want to give a shout out. Yeah, Kelsey. I really like Kelsey. I find her oddly genuine.
Yeah.
And I think that she's a good Iowa girl.
Yeah. I feel like her and Abigail are too nice for the show and they should just, and I can't imagine that either of them have a hard time finding a date because Kelsey is really good looking.
Yeah.
Like if she's on the show to like get people interested, I guarantee she can find plenty of people. A moment of silence for David Spade. I thought he performed handsomely.
I really enjoyed him. I was kind of disappointed to know that they're going to switch things out. I thought we just got him all season.
His limo ride at the end, if you did not hang around and watch it, was comedic gold. I loved everything about it. So if you need something to do today, go find it on YouTube. It's really funny. So, yeah. But David Spade, bye. And now we have a new host. It is Lance Bass, or as I like to call him, Justin Timberlake's little brother. I don't know if that's true, but they started playing it. Several people seemed really sad it wasn't Justin Timberlake, which I think is funny that they think the Bachelor franchise has enough money to bring on Justin Timberlake, because I got to imagine that guy gets paid a lot. He's a big star. Any thoughts on Lance Bass so far?
I like Lance Bass. I think he is so funny, but not in a way that like David Spade is supposed to be funny.
Right.
Like Lance Bass is just like a funny person, and he has such like a fun personality, and he's kind of quirky and gets along with the guys and gets along with the girls. So I'm excited.
And is he openly gay?
Yes.
So is he the first openly gay host for like any length of time on the show? I think he might be. I couldn't find anywhere online where it like stated that, but I think he might be. And it's interesting because there wasn't much said about it. So I don't know how I feel, if that's like progress or go ahead, Danielle.
I just wanted to note how much I appreciated his comment about Riley and Marissa when they were making out, and he was like, so that was awkward. I didn't know where to look. I was like, thank you, because I've always kind of wondered that, like, you know, is Chris Harrison just like watching them make out, and Lance is like, yep, I was watching them make out. It was weird. And so I just I appreciated that. In some ways, like, it's hard because I kind of, on one hand, like, I simultaneously appreciate that we're just responding to Lance as a co-host and not necessarily like having to label him as like a gay co-host.
Yep.
You know, but on the other hand, like, I do think it's also an opportunity to like note that might offer him a unique perspective on what's going on.
Yeah. Then, because they like to just keep stirring stuff up, Thomas enters. And so the initial hot takes from the ladies were that Thomas is really hot. From the guys, Thomas is hot trash. Any thoughts on Thomas? Your initial hot takes?
This was such great editing. I mean, it was just classic. Like all the guys being afraid of Thomas coming down, then Thomas coming down right then. And then you have the whole sequence of him saying the exact same lines about being so large, like over and over and over. It was so classic.
Yeah. So
I want to see Thomas be redeemed, right? But he hasn't. You know, like, in some ways, I love it when someone who's kind of like a villain on an episode, on, you know, like a season of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette comes on Bachelor in Paradise, and you realize that they're actually more complex and interesting people than what we saw. And I was like, is that what we're gonna get with Thomas? And so far my answer is no.
Right. So he went and he pulled all the women aside, and they were like tittering about how hot he was. And then it was like within the amount of time he talked to him, everybody but Serena P was like, I don't like the guy. The women were like, he just talked about himself. He talked about how tall he was. And then Thomas picked Serena P, and then Joe started to spiral. My favorite Joe comment was after Serena P and Thomas left, he was like, now how am I supposed to nap? I thought was the most middle-aged thing a guy could say. And then they just showed him like trying to nap, moving from one couch to the other, just looking very sad.
He's 35.
Yep.
Joe.
Yep. So Thomas, Serena P go on a date. They ride a very phallic looking banana. They make out, and then they kind of go on this beach picnic. And I honestly thought they had something, but Serena wasn't really buying it. Did you think they were like bonding? No, you could see it.
I could hear in the intonation of her voice, like they clearly cut that conversation off at the end, because I kept expecting she said like, I had a really great time. It was nice to meet you, you know, all this stuff. And the intonation just said, but, and then they didn't show it. So when she actually came back and told Joe, I was like, all right, so there was a but. I don't know. They very clearly had physical chemistry, but Thomas just strikes me as a very dull person.
Well, and I think she said this, I think when she was talking to the women, that for her, it was this moment that he started to say negative things about Trey, that she had sort of a shift. Because I think she was open. Maybe people were wrong about him. I want to get to kind of like know him. And I think that they did kind of have a physical connection. And then I think she heard that and she's like, whoa, but I've gotten to know Trey some. Trey's a good guy. I don't like this. And this is just evidence that you are the person that I've been told that you are, and I'm bailing, So
Yeah, I agree. And I felt like so we can just kind of wrap all of the Thomas stuff up, but it seemed like Thomas was making a good faith attempt. So Aaron and the five, I'm calling the five bros, the bros pull him aside and they're going to give him a talking to. And Thomas kind of was like, I feel bad. I didn't come off well. And it seemed genuine. But before, he was calling, in the Serena P conversation, he was calling Trey mentally weak. He basically was like, mentally, he's a child. And I had to take care of him like I was his dad. And I'll do that if I need to. And so then Serena tells Taj, right? Who did Serena tell?
Yeah, I think it was Taj.
Yeah, and then Taj tells Trey. So Trey kind of forgives Thomas in this conversation with the bros, and he says, I appreciate it. I'm going to give you a clean slate. And then Taj tells him, and then Trey pulls Thomas aside and is basically, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm done with you. Any thoughts on that? I thought it was good on Trey instead of just, I probably would have just ruminated on it and like waited till I was like really tired and hungover and then blown up. That's my method for success. If you all were wondering how I live my life.
We were so close to peace in the bro land. We really were. I was super shocked because I was expecting like a fist fight or something. And then he really disarmed me and all the guys by this pretty genuine apology. But I don't know, I don't think Thomas will stay for long because all of these women have already made friends with the guys who are telling them all of these bad things about him. And because none of these people have seen Katie's season, you basically just have to take like the other people's from Katie's season's word for it. So I think if a new girl comes down, like if he for some reason stays through this week based on like a friendship rose or something, I think he could have a better track record with girls who hadn't heard about this from the people who were there already.
I don't know if it can happen though, right? Because it seems like he's at the point now where everyone's pulling people aside and like, listen, I'm going to give you the brief.
Yeah. I could see where if like somebody, like one of the girls gives a rose to somebody a different girl was planning to give a rose to, and they just have to pick somebody, but it's going to be a pity rose, I think.
A pity rose or a producer rose, to keep the drama going. I just think that he's not and also, or I think he has to transform everyone else's opinion of him. I don't know. I'm interested to see.
I just had a recollection of the series preview. Mm-hmm. There is footage of him and Becca making out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So there must be some sort of drama in that he still gets a rose.
So I know that I've talked about like what makes a good apology, and I really turned on Thomas because I don't think that was a genuine apology that he made, but it was like all of the like things. Yeah, he was like, I need to, I did this, I was wrong, here's how I'm going to correct it. And it was amazing because it was like not genuine at all. And
well, this is why detecting lying is so difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we think that people that are lying are going to fidget and look around and all this stuff, but if somebody says to you, hey, people that lie look aside and fidget and all this other stuff, then somebody's like, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to look straight into your eyes and I'm going to do everything that I'm supposed to. And it's kind of the same with apologies. Yeah. If you're like, hey, this is what makes a genuine apology, what's so funny is that if actually someone does some like apologizes, but it feels really textbook, it loses its genuineness too, because it feels like you just read the directions, right? So you can do everything right and do it wrong because like some flaw would actually indicate genuineness.
Right. Nice. That's a double extra credit from Danielle.
That was just me getting excited.
I like it. So we're kind of left wondering what's going to happen with Thomas, but in the interim, Riley had arrived. The chicks all really like Riley. He's got great big arms. He flexed twice when they said that, which and all the dudes seem to kind of like him too, like as opposed to Thomas, where the guys are like, I hate you. Everyone's like, Riley's a good enough guy, I guess. And then Taj really wants to get with Riley. It doesn't happen. And Trey's happy, but Taj seems really disappointed. So Trey seems put off by that, but they make up after they talk it out. Thoughts on Trey and Taj? They're gonna stay together?
Heck no.
The Traj.
If there's a shot for Taj to be with Riley, like 100% she's gonna take it. I mean, I related a lot to Taj in this episode because he walked down the stairs and she like immediately started sweating, and so did I. And then she goes, I don't know what to do with like my body. I don't know how to act. I was like, that would entirely be me. Like the one person she wanted to see showed up. She had no idea how to talk to him. She blew it, and then she pouted because she knew she blew it. That's about how it would go for me.
You know, my sister said the same thing. My sister was like, if I was on this show, I would be Taj. I would be like, I don't know what to do with my body. I'm sweating. You know, it's like, you know, it is funny though, because Bill, I think you're right that like, we don't judge, like she messed up and I felt bad for Trey, and she kind of smoothed things over with Trey, but I didn't like that she kind of like blamed Trey for it. She was sort of like, oh, well, like I just needed reassurance from you. BS, you were all about Riley. Like it's okay. So I do think there's something though that's so likable about her, and I that like we just sort of dismiss that, even though like I really like Trey too, and I want to protect Trey's heart.
Yes. Yeah, he's kind of like a happy, like overly excited puppy dog.
It must be because he's mentally weak. We want to protect him.
When she said he was mentally weak, I was like, well, that's mean. I kind of see it, but like, it's mean. You don't need to say it, you know, or mentally weak, but he's also, I think he seems very young. Mm-hmm. And like, he just doesn't have he doesn't been through relationships, and I don't know.
I kind of like appreciate though that he's like forgiving.
Yep.
But he did still set boundaries, and I don't think that that's a sign of mental weakness to hold the boundary that he did with Thomas. And he did express to Taj that he was concerned that she was disappointed she wasn't chosen to go on a date with Riley. So I mean, I actually think that there are a lot of things that he was doing that displays emotional strength.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be there because he wants a genuine relationship. And but Riley picks Marissa up. They go on the date, and Connor is not worried, but in a whole nother sense, Connor is very worried. He keeps saying he's not worried in the way I say it, when I am like, this is not going to end well. First off, do we think he should be worried?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that ship done sailed.
Maybe just go home.
I think the bigger issue is going to be that I don't think Riley is that into Marissa, and I think after he gets the rose, he's going to go fishing.
Why do you think that? What indications do you have?
I just the way they talk, the way he describes kind of what he wants in life. It was very much like, here's what I'm looking for, and not like, you and me could do this, and which he has every right. And that, like, in no way am I critiquing him. That is the show, and God bless you if you play the game. And if anyone gets mad about how the game is played, as long as somebody's not like, I'm in love with you. I felt like he didn't say anything like that. And so, yeah.
I think there was also preview footage of him and I want to say Taj, but I'm not for sure because they kind of played it as he might be two-timing, but he seems like a very serious man, which I mean leads to awesome conversations like, like they were kind of talking about what they wanted and that kind of thing, but also he does seem like a smooth operator.
So there was like this moment as they were talking where he like asked her a question and she answered it partially. She like gave like a half of an answer and he was like, me too. This is like what I want. And like maybe it was around kids.
Yeah.
She said something and he was like, yeah, I want a whole basketball team. Also, as she was talking and she's like, yeah, like my kids are gonna win and stuff. I was like, how are her and Connor dating? This makes no sense at all. Yeah. Like Connor's not gonna give you a little basketball team. It was really interesting to me. It was clear that they had such a strong sexual connection and were physically attracted to each other. But I couldn't, and they did talk about serious things like, do you want a family and things like that, but I couldn't tell if they were actually, because she's also like, I'm kind of like a homebody, and like he doesn't really seem like that. And I don't know. It was interesting.
The girls seemed very into his swag. They kept saying that. And I guess I just watching it, I was like, I feel like you would constantly have to reinforce that he's like a man. Like my takeaway was that he seemed very like he needed to make sure people knew he was like an alpha male. And I feel like as his significant other, that would take a lot of mental energy.
Well, she said that she needs lots of reassurance and said that over and over again. So maybe they can just keep reassuring each other.
I don't think the research would suggest that like people who both need reassurance work out real well. But, there's exceptions.
Come on, Bill. Come on, Bill. Give me the answer I want here.
So thoughts on how Connor handled it? I thought he was being pretty mature about it, but I also kind of think Connor's not really, I don't think he's going to be as heartbroken as they're trying to make him out to be. I think we said last week, he's just there to have a good time and play his songs. Which several times they zoom on him like playing his sad song and it's like, oh, come on.
I think he handled it well. I think he had a lot of undeserved confidence in the relationship, but if it helped him cope better than Grocery Store Joe, that's great. Because Joe had a meltdown and then said, oh yeah, I knew you'd come back.
When Joe said that, there was a part of me that was like, come on, man. Just like, I hate when people, and it seems like specifically guys, they lose their mind over something and they're like, oh, I was confident the whole time. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with just being like, yeah, I was worried. I really like you. I would be heartbroken if you, went with someone else. Yeah.
I think he said it knowing that the producers were totally going to show him having the meltdown. Like it was just another producer gold moment.
I appreciated Serena P. Like, oh, were you? You weren't nervous at all, huh? So basically Riley and Marissa end up in the boom boom room. And Connor is still supposedly not concerned. I think we all think he should be concerned if he wants us to go forward. And then Brendan and who's the girl Brendan's with? There's so many names.
Natasha.
Brendan and Natasha have a really awkward interaction where she says, I don't feel like you're interested. And Brendan says, I'm loving you more, or I'm liking you more each day. And then she tells him to go to bed. And he goes to bed. So Nicole, you said something about this, about the way they kind of talk. I think Brendan just doesn't want to fight. And I think that's going to be the issue, is that Brendan, I don't think has ever had to work emotionally in a relationship. And I think
Brendan out.
Yeah. I think he's never had to work emotionally, and it just rolls over. And I feel like this is going to be a constant thing with the two of them, where it's like she gets mad and he's like, yeah, whatever. And then he comes back and says he's sorry, and then she'll be fine with it. Not a recipe for success.
Well, with Tasha, what did I just say? With Tasha, Brendan was, I think he felt like it was, or at least the story that he told us, right, was that things were moving too fast. And as they were getting near the end of the show, I think he's like, I really like you, but like, I'm not there yet, you know? And so what I'm trying to figure out with Brendan is he just really, really slow, right? I could probably just leave it there. Like, but like, you know, he's slow to form relationships that like, or is he just like a really boring dude? You know, like I'm like, are you just your beautiful eyes?
I think, yeah, his big lips and beautiful eyes.
Beard.
Yeah, his perfect like 5 o'clock shadow. I think that's what, I don't think there's a lot of emotional depth there.
Yeah.
And I don't think he has a good script when stuff starts to get difficult of how to navigate that.
I really connect to that, Brendan. I often am reduced to my beautiful facade.
But I feel like that's the difference with him and Trey, right? Is that like, at least Trey, it's like it comes out in this like just vomit of emotions, but at least you're like, Trey's into this. He's gonna work. He's got feelings, where Brendan's like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So awesome moments. Taj and the crab. I was laughing really hard, especially when she had the crab up on the plate.
She, I think, is my favorite this season at this point, which is a complete 180 from 2 years ago. If you remember her, she was on for like maybe 5 minutes of screen time, enough to sweat and scream into the ocean, collapse, and go home. So
I just really like people that are unapologetically themselves. Like, I don't like people who put on to like make themselves be something. It bothers me when people don't know who they are. And I feel like she just knows exactly who she is. And it's like, take it or leave it. So Connor played several songs. So good on him that he gets to do that before he goes home at the end of this one. Yeah. And then Carl kicking the air's ass, which I thought was cinematic gold.
One, how is Carl still on here? And two, at least we don't have to see that much of him.
I feel like they're using him perfectly. Like he is being deployed beautifully. At one point, the guys are complaining about Thomas, and Carl's like over at the table, like, they'll never remember that I suck as much as Thomas. Like, he's like, yeah, Thomas is horrible. Let's get rid of him. It's just, yeah, he's amazing. So lessons learned.
I had that there's a very difficult balance between forming your own opinion of someone and taking into consideration the opinions of people you respect.
Ooh.
I can see that really being a problem the more that the Bachelor universe keeps fanoodling outside of camera time, outside of the Bachelor.
You just use the term fanoodling.
I don't even know.
I think that's a new word.
Fanoodling.
Mark it. Bachademia today. Fanoodling.
Instead of the boom boom room, it's the fanoodle room.
Oh yeah. I love it. That is our word. We're taking it. Fanoodle. It's ours.
Yes, that was my takeaway. Difficult balance.
That's great. I just am sort of, throughout our conversation, I keep kind of thinking about, to kind of go back to your question of the week, right? This idea of believing everything that we're told, like, how do we determine, you know, like you just said that, like, you love Taj because you like people that are unabashedly themselves and like know themselves. And I keep going, like, how do we know? This like question of like, how is it, like, because I agree with you. I feel the same way about Taj, right? But like, we have this sense that we know when people are being genuine and they're not. And I wonder if we're as good at calling that as we think we are. I think I'm probably a lot worse at it, but that's because I actually always want to trust people. Like I think I actually told my students in class the other day, I was like talking about my attendance policy, which I really don't have one. And I was like, I would just rather have you fool me and like pull one over on me than like me to start thinking that my students are never to be trusted. Right. So like I would rather be a trusting fool than a cynical cynic. I don't know. But yeah, so I think that I am here to get fooled.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you were able to connect, like close the loop on the question at the beginning with the question at the end. Oh man, that makes me so happy. I'm gonna cry a little bit.
I'll use it in my motivational speaking career.
Right. I'm gonna be your hype guy for that.
I mean, I've heard some pretty good transitions by you this episode, Bill.
Thanks.
There was a good bye transition that I particularly liked. I mean, well done.
My lesson learned is you have to know who you are before you can get to know someone else. And so going to Danielle's statement, I think we can never know if someone, like, I think it's a fool's errand to walk around and be like, do they know who they actually are? I just think it's everyone's responsibility to get to know who they are. If we all just made sure that we put time in to figure out who we are, then we wouldn't have to go around asking people. I realize that's very like pie in the sky, but I just feel like people who know themselves have good relationships with other people who know themselves, and you respect them for what they are and what they're not, and give them that grace. So
Yay.
Nicole, shout outs. You get the last word.
Yes. Okay. 3 tiers of shout outs.
Oh, wow.
My husband, who won't listen to this. Tier 2.
Get rid of him.
Coworkers.
Get rid of him. Get a husband who listens to you on podcasts. I'm joking if he hears this, but he won't because he doesn't listen.
You're right. My coworkers, who are amazing, Melissa and Gina, who are going to listen to this, even though they don't watch at all. And then my friend Anna, who watches every episode with me. So.
Oh, yay.
That's awesome. All right. We will see you all next week.
Yay. Thank you. 4 hours down. How many to go?
A lot. Thanks for being on the show.
Bye. Thank you.
You've been listening to Bachademia with your hosts, Doctors Daniel Dick McGew and Bill Henniger. All opinions expressed on this show are solely the opinion of the person who spoke them. If you like our podcast, please consider following us, leaving us a 5-star rating, and a positive review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, please share with your friends, family, and other ardent Bachelor content lovers. If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at bachademia@gmail.com or on the Twitter with the handle @Bachademia. Thanks for listening.